Okay, so we've already got a whole bunch of classes designated. Let's go ahead and move on to the actual class that will control the projectile of our weapon.
Right, just a second ago we set that to be the LP projectile, so let's go ahead and get started on that.
All right.
Now in this case, we're going to start out and actually modify an existing one, but in a kind of interesting way. Let's see, yeah, the LP rifle, LP projectile.
Gotcha.
Laser pulse projectile. So the class here is of course going to be class LP projectile.
Okay. I can do that.
And it's going to extend the link projectile. So, yeah, this is a weapon from scratch, but we're going to take a look at reusing an existing projectile, though we are going to be doing some pretty hefty changes to it, at least visually.
Okay, cool.
So, now, one thing before we get into the actual coding is this is going to be a little bit of an interesting line. Number sign exec. So executing a command or a commandlet at runtime.
Okay.
The command we're going to be running is obj space load space file equals LP rifle text .utx. So what are we doing here? Well, basically, we're going to be referring to a specific texture a little bit later in code, and we need to make sure that that package is open and available for us to use items within it.
Okay.
Otherwise, when we try to refer to a texture, we're just going to get an error that that texture doesn't exist.
That makes sense.
So, all right, moving on from that and back into more general coding. Now, before we start getting into functions and everything, we're going to need to define a variable. Again, this is explained more in other scripting lessons, but we're going to need to keep track of a certain X emitter. So it's going to be var of type X emitter.
All right.
And we're going to call this new trail.
New trail. Gotcha.
Okay, so now moving on to more of the functionality. We're going to be overloading the simulated function postNetBeginPlay.
That's a mouthful.
So again, an existing function that's called after postBeginPlay. Once everything has, basically you can pretty much count on this as being this. Once this comes into being, or maybe after it's spawned, or after the level starts.
Okay, gotcha.
But within here, the first, okay, so I guess we can
go
ahead and block that in.
Yeah, right. So okay, we got that blocked in.
The first thing we're going to do is super.postNetBeginPlay.
That is a mouthful.
So basically, what we're doing here is making sure that the link projectile, everything it does when it sets up, say, what kind of trail it has and everything else, we want that set, because we want to have a functioning link projectile to start working on here.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, we don't really need to space that over. I was just...
Okay, just
either
making
way.
sure. All right.
But now we're going to say if trail does not equal none, trail being a variable that's defined back in link projectile.
All right.
And what we're doing here is just making sure that the trail was successfully spawned and exists now.
Okay, so if there is a trail.
Right. So now we can drop down and block that in, I guess.
Okay.
So we do have a trail. What do we want to do with it? Well, the first thing, let's say trail.destroy. Let's kill the existing trail.
Okay.
So all the plasma effect off of the normal link projectile will be destroyed.
Gotcha. And go ahead and set that up to work. All right. So from here.
So now we'll say new trail.
Oh, there's the caps lock key. I found it. New trail
equals. Then we're going to call a function spawn. So new trail equals spawn. Then in parentheses, the first argument will be a class, what we're spawning.
Okay.
So we're spawning class flak trail.
Okay.
And let's say, end that off with a single, not a double quote.
Okay. Whoops. There we go.
And let's see. Next, we're going to just say self. So basically, it belongs to this class.
Okay. So wait a minute. We just destroyed the trail that already exists. So now we've got our original our variable that we created way up here. We're actually setting a value for.
Right. Basically, if we say new trail equals spawn and then some class, spawn is going to return whatever class it created.
Okay.
So now we can refer back to that flak trail we just created through new trail.
Okay. So we're actually removing the original link cannon trail and basically putting in a flak cannon trail?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so from here.
Now, the next thing, though, is we don't want it to be exactly like the original flak trail. We want to change some things about it.
Okay.
So we'll start off by saying new trail
New trail.
Dot M color range element 0
Okay.
is, or element 0 dot B.
Dot B, so it'll be the blue value?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we're going to set that to 0.
Alright. And terminate that. So are we going to be changing a lot of these colors?
Actually, yes, we need to set...
Alright, well here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the new trail line here, and I'm just going to hit Control-C.
Basically, we're going to be setting the blue and red components of the trail's M color range to 0, so we're left only with green.
So the next line will be, let's see, I'm guessing here, should be new trail.mColorRange 0.
Still working with 0, but the red components.
Okay, so it'd be .R. So I'll go ahead and just Control-V, the line I copied from above, and we'll back up one, and I'll just change this to R. Okay, so with that...
Now, the other end of the range, or element 1 of M color range, we need to make sure we set that as well.
Okay, so same values, just a different element. So I'll go ahead and hit Control-V again, and I'll take mColorRange and set the element to 1 this time. And we'll just do the same thing here.
And again, a lot of these values were found by just going through the X emitter and exploring some of its properties.
Okay, that makes sense.
So set element 1, and then the red component, set that to 0.
Alright, so jump this back to R as well. Okay.
So we've created a new flag trail, but now we've changed the color of it. Basically, we took the flag trail and changed it to green.
Makes sense. Cool.
Now, one last thing is we need new trail.skins. Now, there is part of the flag trail that you don't have access to easily. That's just part of the texture it uses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I need to bring in that different texture. If you remember from where we had to import everything into the texture package, that extra flag trail, the extra effect we had to bring in.
I remember
that
that.
was green. So skins, and there's only one skin, so element 0.
Okay.
And we'll set that equal to texture.
And then...
LP rifle text dot beam.
Dot beam. Okay, gotcha. I remember that. That was that first texture we actually brought into that package.
Exactly, and this also ties back into where we had to do an exact object load to make sure that LP rifle text was available in the first place.
That makes perfect sense. Very cool.
So with that, I guess just terminate that off, and that will take care of everything we need to do within post-net begin play.
Alright, awesome. Oh, let me put that single quote back in there. There we go.
Now, after that, one other function we need to take a look at is the simulated function destroyed.
Man, I thought we were done, too.
We need to keep track of what happens after the projectile is destroyed. It hits something or someone. We need to make sure that our new trail is destroyed. Otherwise, it's not, because the original link projectile wasn't set up to handle anything about new trail. We need to take care of that ourselves and make sure our own custom trail gets destroyed in the end.
Okay, cool. Alright, so I've got this blocked off.
So first we'll say if new trail does not equal none, so that we still do have a trail in existence.
Alright, so if there's a trail there, then what?
Well, then we're going to take new trail and destroy it. So simply new trail.destroy.
Okay, so...
Lock that in a little bit, and...
New trail dot destroy. Gotcha.
And that way it'll make sure that our trail is cleaned up, so we don't have part of the trail remaining after the projectile hits a wall.
Okay.
So just keeping everything cleaned up.
Okay, let me go ahead and terminate that then.
And outside of the if block now, just going to do a super.destroy to make sure that anything that the link projectile used to be doing when it was destroyed, any cleanup it might be doing, is still called.
Right, so we're not actually destroying any functionality. Okay.
So with that, that's all the new functionality we need, and we can just finish this off with a few default properties.
Sweet. Default properties. Back to something I remember. Alright.
Now, one other thing I'm going to do to the 4-link projectile is stretch it out. So instead of using a simple draw scale, we're going to use draw scale 3D.
Okay.
And this takes in, it's also a vector type, takes in, or has 3 components, an X, Y, and Z. So draw scale 3D.
I have such a hard time hitting the equal sign. I always make it plus for some weird reason.
Let's say the X of draw scale 3D is going to be equal to 4.
Logan's like, whatever, dude, just type. X equals 4. What's Y going to be equal to?
0.4.
0.4.
So stretch it out in Y, or stretch it out in X, shrink it down in Y.
Okay.
And maybe set the Z to 0.4 as well.
Alright,
so shrink the Y and Z, and then stretch it out in X.
Okay, gotcha.
Z.
0.4. Alright. And we'll go ahead and close our parentheses. Looks good from here.
Alright, so now back to some more standard projectile stuff. We'll say that the max speed is equal to 1500.
Alright.
So fairly fast projectile.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty quick. Alright.
And the speed is equal to 1500.
So there won't be much variation in speed, I guess.
No.
Because the max speed and the speed itself are both set to the same value.
Now, let's set the damage. Just make it interesting, kind of funny. Let's put the damage up to 100.
Okay.
So
Is that a percentage base?
No, that's how many points of damage it does.
Okay.
So setting it to 3, you'll lose 3 health points if you get hit by it.
So this will basically, in most cases, kill somebody.
Right, unless they have something, or if they've just spawned and haven't picked up any like health vials or mega health or shields.
Gotcha.
Then yeah, they're toast.
I gotcha. Okay. So damage is set to 100.
So this isn't very well balanced yet, but again, this is just the creation of a weapon.
Right,
we'll
right.
leave weapon balancing and everything up to you once you've gotten comfortable with the process.
Right, well
of creating
that's a matter of taste anyway. I mean, you might want to have a gun that kills everybody with a single shot, or you might want to have something that's kind of like a pea shooter that just slowly wears them down and just hurts them a lot. So where are we going to go from here?
One last thing. Let's set the lifespan of this projectile to 8. So meaning 8 seconds.
All right, that's
so
pretty cool.
if the projectile is flying for more than 8 seconds, it simply dies out. This
What?
helps keep. This is good for large outdoor maps when people may be shooting all over the place.
Right.
You don't want projectiles living for all 5 miles of their possible path they might travel.
That makes sense.
Once it's a decent range out of where it was going, there's chances are it's not going to hit anything useful anyway.
Very cool. So, I mean, is there anything else we need to add to this class?
Nope, that should be about it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get it saved out. So go to File, Save As. I'm actually saving at the end of the video now instead of the beginning of the next video. Alright, LPprojectile. Once again, naming this the same thing as the class itself. And it looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and hit Save. And I guess that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this lesson. So, thanks a lot.